Yes, guys, welcome to the Game Week 13 press conference roundup. Going to do a bit of a new section here because I haven't done this before on a live stream, but I feel like it's quite a significant game week with all of the injury news that we've had from today's press conferences. Give you a bit of an indication on exactly what has been said, because I know some people are sat there thinking, what's the update with Matty Cash, with the likes of Botman, with the likes of Bowen, Mitoma? Don't worry, I've got you covered off in this live stream. It's going to be for the next 30 minutes. And the big thing as well, let me know if you have any questions going into this Saturday deadline. This is your opportunity. Whatever you're up to right now, maybe you're cooking while you're watching this, just let me know what you're up to in the world and where you're tuning in from. It'd be awesome to know. But as I said, this is going to be nice and chilled. A nice informative video as well as answering all of your questions. I can see Omar has already put one in. Asking is Mitoma to Eze this week and Diaby to Mbeumo next week a good plan? And Omar, I really do like that plan. Now, in regards to Aston Villa's fixtures, I don't know whether you're going to feel inclined to sell Diaby in game week 14 when he's away against Bournemouth. I think it's an okay fixture, but the plan that you have in place right now, I actually think is quite favourable. Selling an injured player like Mitoma for Eze, who is playing away against Luton, I really do like that move. And it's worth noting, Diaby, with the injuries that Spurs have right now, I don't think is a bad fixture at all. So you're keeping Diaby for that week. Then in the following game week, you are selling for Mbeumo, who has Luton at home. I really like that strategy. I am all for it. Immortal Technique, hope you're doing very well, my friend. As always, if you guys are watching and you're enjoying what you're watching, please do consider dropping a like on the stream. You always aim for 50 likes on the streams. You guys always smash it. Can you do it again? I really do hope so. Immortal Technique saying hold Son or jump to Palmer before the price rise. We're going to come on to some of those price rises in a minute, so make sure you do stick around. I'll give you the most up-to-date ones that we have. So in that situation, I know that Palmer is obviously quite a temptation right now, but this week, I just don't think it is a desperate move. You're selling Son, who has an okay fixture against Aston Villa. Defensively, I wouldn't say they are watertight. To someone like Cole Palmer, who is away against Newcastle, who historically are fantastic at St. James's Park, I think you're going for someone like Son, who has a real high up ceiling, to someone like Cole Palmer, who realistically, what are we expecting from Cole Palmer? Yes, he might get a penalty, he might get an assist or an open play goal, but I don't think the ceiling of Cole Palmer is enough to justify you selling Son to afford Cole Palmer this game week. So I'm going to say no on that move. Zakaria saying, please, Bowen news. Okay, so let's give you a bit of an update on what they've said about Jared Bowen. He hasn't trained. It sounds like he hasn't trained. However, David Moyes has come out in a press conference and said that he's optimistic that Bowen will play this weekend, and they're going to make sure they do a test tomorrow to see whether he passes. So we don't actually have any clarification right now whether Jared Bowen is available for the weekend. However, I think based on that news, it is enough information for us to suggest keeping Bowen is the right play. Now, the 3 p.m. kickoff for West Ham, and of course the deadline being 11 a.m, we may get some news between now and then whether they are actually going to be travelling with the squad or not, because they need to travel to obviously the place that they're playing against Burnley. So my recommendation is this. I definitely would keep Bowen at least until Saturday morning. If we get some news that he's travelled with the squad, I absolutely would keep him then for sure. Then, after that, it is all about getting lucky. Hopefully, Bowen does play and obviously gets the returns that you're after. For me, as a Bowen owner, and I'm going to come on to my plans in a minute, spoiler alert, I am going to be keeping him going into this weekend. I think I'll just kick myself if I'd done Bowen to Mbeumo, who has a tougher fixture against Arsenal, and Bowen ends up starting against this Burnley team who are so poor defensively and ends up picking up a goal or an assist. So I think it's worth taking the risk, but again, I appreciate some squads are a little bit different. And they might not have the benches available that if Bowen wasn't to play, have anybody to come in his place. So that is the latest update regarding Bowen, but I will touch on a few of the other players in a minute, what I've selected. Eze or Mbeumo. Now, this is a really interesting one right now. I would recommend checking out my most recent videos where I've gone into depth regarding both Eze and Mbeumo, the fixtures, the underlying stats. So please do check that out if you want a bit more of a detailed answer. But my conclusion is this. If you're looking for a 1 week punt, Eze is your man. He's 4.5% owned. So if he does anything, that is going to be a huge rank rise for your FPL teams. However, I think Mbeumo from game week 14 onwards is going to be on everybody's radar. Luton at home, Brighton, Sheffield United, amazing fixtures for Mbeumo. So it's very much what kind of time frame you've got. One game week, the answer is Eze. Beyond that, the answer will be Mbeumo. So yeah, Mbeumo will be my answer personally on that one. Thinking of going out of Son and getting Mbeumo next week, keeping Trippier and slowly transform my formation to a 3-4-3 in game week 18. Don't mind that at all. All teams are obviously different to one another. I can't see myself going that direction right now, but I like the way that you've got that planned. I wouldn't be selling Son this week though, but I don't mind it for the following week. But again, it is worth noting, I still value Son as one of the best assets in the game, even without the likes of Maddison in that team. Diego saying, thank you from Vermont. Love your diligence and presentations. Can't decide to start Johnson or Areola. Palmer or Mbeumo, thank you. Well, firstly, thank you so much for tuning in. Really, really do appreciate you. And from Vermont as well, that's awesome. So, who would I start between Johnson or Areola? So to remind ourselves, Johnson is obviously playing away against Luton, and then Areola is away against Burnley. So both have fantastic fixtures. I probably would back the Crystal Palace defence more than that of Areola. So I'm going to say Johnson in that situation, but I will say to you, it is kind of a coin flip. So don't be surprised if one does well and one doesn't, or both do well. But I would just lean towards Johnson personally. Palmer or Mbeumo, that is a really tricky one, but I probably would lean more towards Mbeumo. Guaranteed 90 minutes on penalties. I know Palmer is also on penalties, but I prefer Brentford at home against Arsenal than that of Chelsea away against Newcastle. That's my current thought process, but it is worth noting Arsenal defensively away from home are one of the best in the league. So I think both have tricky fixtures. I would just lean towards more Mbeumo, but again, it's a really, really close call between those two. So before we get into more of those questions, and please do put your questions in the comment section because I will be answering them throughout this stream. I want to put a quick poll in the chat to see who is going to be your Game Week 13 captain. Is your Game Week 13 captain? Because I think it's a real big week. I don't see massive hauls from a lot of players because they play against one another. So a lot of players are going to have, or a lot of managers are going to have a defender versus their attacker. It's going to be very difficult for huge scores this week. So the captaincy could be a massive one. So I want to put a few options on your screens here, and I want you to let me know who you're going for captaincy. And if you're not going for the three that I put on your screens, click other and let me know in the comment section. So please, if you can, just vote in the poll that I've put up there. That would be awesome for you guys to let me know what direction you're going with your captaincy. So let me go into this right now because I want to quickly cover off just a few players that I've saved in the watch list who are injury risk going into game week 13 and give you an indication of what has been said in the press conference. So first up, Onana has obviously been a bit of an injury doubt. However, Ten Hag has come out and said that he is fit for the Everton game. Does that mean Man United are going to keep a clean sheet? I probably doubt it. But for those that do currently own Onana, and he is 14% owned in the game, he is fit for the game week 13 fixture against Everton. And it's worth noting, he's actually kept a couple of clean sheets in the last two. So maybe it is the turn again of Onana being one of the highest scoring goalkeepers in the game. So next up, Matty Cash flagged in the game. We haven't had anything out of the lips of Unai Emery to say that Matty Cash is available. However, we have had some trusted sources from FPL Villain on Twitter, very, very credible account, who has said he is trained and he is available for selection. Now, again, we don't know whether Unai Emery might go for a bit of a different system. Konsa could come in at right back and we could see the return of Alex Moreno at left back particularly. But I'm going to say Cash is available. That's all we know right now. And then it comes down to, is Unai Emery going to start him? Looking at the starts and the minutes, I think Cash probably does start this weekend. And he's fine to hold. Looking at the fixtures, yes, Spurs away isn't the best. Bournemouth away is a good fixture. Then 15 and 60 is tough. But after that, the fixtures long term are fantastic. So I don't think Matty Cash is a desperate sell. But if you have 2 free transfers, no other problems in your team, maybe selling him for a more guaranteed player over this period is a better move. And I will come on to my transfer plans in a bit. Fabian Schär looks like he's fine. Picked up a knock over the international break, but Eddie House doesn't expect him to be any issues for him to play against Chelsea, which is good news. So Fabian Schär, all good. Levi Colwill back fit and available. Only 4.6% owned, so I doubt this affects many FPL managers. But if you are a Levi Colwill owner and you're looking to start him, it does look like he is available Whether he gets back into that Chelsea team is the other question. Cucurella has been doing okay at left back, and we've seen the integration of Thiago Silva and Disasi's partnership over the last few weeks. That could remain the same away against St James's Park. So Colwell available, but not necessarily a guaranteed starter. Next up, Botman. This guy, who knows how long he's going to be out for? Eddie Howe has literally said, we're hopeful that he's going to be available soon, but he also could be out for ages. So we have no update on Botman. 6.6% owned. If you have him, you absolutely sell him. Go to other options out there. Eddie Howe has given us nothing regarding Sven Botman. Udogie, back, fit and available for game week 13, and just said, good news for those that do own him. And I probably would start him against Aston Villa unless you are really blessed with defenders in game week 13. So Udogie is back. Estupiñán out for a long time. De Zerbi said, out long term. If you own him, you absolutely sell him. Still owned by 18% of the game, so it really isn't worth keeping on to him. I was hopeful he'll be back because I think there are holes over this period, but sell him. He is out long term, which is a real shame. Real shame. Big one as well. Luke Shaw is back available for the fixture against Everton. Now, I'm not saying that Luke Shaw is now becoming an FPL option because he's still 5.2 million, but we could see a period where Luke Shaw and Man United defence become popular once again. It's only a few months ago where we were all talking about the value of Luke Shaw in the game. Obviously, the long-term injury has been a problem, but he needs to be an option for our teams. Maybe later down the line, nothing right now. Moving into midfielders, the two big ones. Jared Bowen, as I've mentioned, hasn't really trained in the week, but David Moyes is going to make a late decision on him. For me, unless we get information that he hasn't travelled with the squad, my intention is just keeping him and hoping that he starts. I'd be really annoyed at myself if I sold him and then he ended up starting against this Burnley fixture. And then in game week 14, a great fixture at home against Crystal Palace, followed by Spurs, Fulham, Wolves, and even United, I would say, is a good fixture. So Bowen long-term looks great. I wouldn't be rushing to sell him right now. But as I mentioned, with the 3 p.m. kickoff, the 11 a.m. UK time deadline, if we get some news early on, obviously keep an eye on Twitter, and I will be doing a deadline live, so I will keep you up to date if you want to stay in touch with everything. The other big one, Kaoru Mitoma. Yes, he is on amber warning on FPL. He is ruled out for game week 13. De Zerbi has come out and said that. Do you sell him? That is the big question because we don't know how long term he's out. Chelsea away, Brentford at home, Burnley at home, Arsenal away. I actually think the fixtures are okay for Mitoma, but if your squad is in a bit of a bad spot right now, maybe selling him for an Mbeumo, for an Eze is the right move. And I think it probably is going to be the case for a lot of FPL managers. These sort of ones that are really unknown are really difficult FPL decisions. Last up, the forwards. Haaland has been pictured in training. Pep said that they're hoping for him to be available. I think he definitely starts. I'll be astonished if he doesn't play in this fixture away at home against Liverpool. So I think Haaland's absolutely fine. But again, with the kickoff being the lunchtime one and the deadline 11 a.m, I am certain we will get some Man City team leaks before the deadline. So again, make sure you are online if you can a few minutes before the deadline just to get that Haaland update. Darwin, obviously not flagged in the game, but it is worth noting Klopp has said that South American players are going to be touch and go whether they can start or come on as an impact sub, and Darwin Núñez is one of those players. I think if you own him, you just start him and hope for the best in that situation. Last up, Gabriel Jesus available for Arsenal, so that could be a problem for those that maybe have some attacking Arsenal assets like Trossard's game time. Last up, Nkunku. We were all hoping Nkunku will be back for the Newcastle game, but it sounds doubtful. Maybe one game too early. It looks like with the fixtures, Brighton at home is going to be the target fixture for Nkunku to get some minutes. Realistically, game week 16 onwards could be the time for us to look to invest in Nkunku. So, guys, that is a bit of a roundup in terms of the injuries. Please do let me know in the comments if I've missed any significant players. I probably have missed one or two. Please do let me know. But look, let's get straight into some of these questions that you've asked in the comment section. And if you haven't already, please do drop a like on the stream. After I've covered off some of the questions, I'll come on to my team. It'll be a bit of a, what's the word? Preview, a bit of a, what's it called? What's the first thing? Like when you reveal something. Anyway, I kind of know what I'm going to do now with the Bowen situation. So I'm going to tell you guys for the first time. So let's get through some of these. Dawn, hope you're doing well. What do I do? Have one free transfer, 1.3 million in the bank. My team is Areola, Flecken, Taylor, Guy, Shimikas, Cash, Saliba, Bowen, Saka, Gordon, Salah. Okay, so in your situation right now, I think you start most likely Areola away against Burnley. Then in terms of defence, I would start Guy here. I probably would start Saliba. And then the question is, do you go for Taylor or Matty Cash? I don't think you're desperate for a transfer right now, and your defence is worth noting. Then I would start all 5 of your midfielders, and then I would start Watkins and Haaland. The big question is, do you want to start Archer? Sheffield United obviously play at home against Bournemouth, so a good fixture. If you are worried about one of your midfielders' game time, you could easily start Archer instead of those. For me, I would start all 5 midfielders, Watkins, Haaland, and I would roll my free transfer in that situation. If you had to make a move and you're worried about the game time of someone like a Matty Cash, you could look to invest it in somebody like a Gabriel and get a double Arsenal defence. It's Kareem saying, I have 2 free transfers with 0.2 million in the bank, and I've got Matoma, Bowen, and Cash and Maguire. What do I do? So Maguire, not an issue for your team because he's actually somebody who is going to start this weekend, I would assume. So in this situation, you've got Bowen, who is a touch and go, so I wouldn't be selling him over Matoma. Then you've got Matoma, Cash. I would prioritise selling Matoma this weekend. If you can get yourself to, or you can't, to Mbeumo, that would have been an option. Otherwise, I think Eze is also a fantastic option. And Cole Palmer, more of a long-term move and something that's going to free up a bit of funds in your team to invest elsewhere. Keep Gordon or bring in Eze. I don't think it's a luxury move. If you have 1 free transfer, I would probably keep Gordon. If you have 2 free transfers and you're really looking to make a move, then I do like the move for Eze in that situation. Good point from Palmer regarding selling Son for Palmer because Palmer's rising in price potentially. Again, Son is so much more expensive than Cole Palmer. You can allow a player to rise 0.1 million. It's not an issue. Should I have Archer or Udogie as my first sub? Of those two, I would go for Archer and chase the upside there. Yes, Spurs could keep a clean sheet, but with the runners that Aston Villa do have in Watkins and Diaby, I'm expecting them to cause some problems for Spurs, who are likely going to start Davis and Dyer as their centre-backs. So I'd probably just go for Archer and hope that they do just funnel all the chances through him in that fixture against Bournemouth. Sell or keep Trippier? I would absolutely keep Trippier right now, unless you really were in a situation where you had to afford somebody. So, for example, you're talking about doing Trippier and Diaby to Gabriel and Saka. I just don't see the value with this week. I would definitely keep both of those players that you're intending to sell. And Brian saying already sold Adingra and Alvarez for Eze and Solanke, keeping and starting Bowen. Hopefully that works out for you, Brian, on that situation. For those that are wondering regarding the price changes, let me give you a bit of an update on what it is saying on the official site right now. This will be a good indication for you. Hopefully this is clear enough. So, players that are potentially rising in price. Hopefully you can see that on your screens. Do let me know in the comments if it is not good enough. I will try and improve it for you. So, players that are potentially rising in price tonight are going to include Eze, Anderson, Nicholas Jackson. That can't be right. Hang on a second. That can't be right. Let's get this up. Let's take a look. Oh, it is true. Okay. So, Nicholas Jackson potentially going up in price. Kudos, Johnston, Darwin Núñez, Guy, Ward-Prowse, Saliba could be very close, and also Cole Palmer. Now, players that are potentially falling in price. Matty Cash is being sold by literally everybody right now, it is worth noting. So there is a situation where if you were in the market for Matty Cash and Saliba, we could see a 0.2 swing, and that could really hinder you in the morning. So please do be conscious of that situation. Dan Burn potentially falling in price. Ben White, anyone else significant? Botman could be falling in price. Who else do we have who could be falling in price tonight? We've also got Matoma could be falling in price. Colwell, Isak. Some big players are potentially falling in price tonight. So, as always, I really do not like making early transfers before the deadline. But if you were in a situation where you're going to get priced out and this is a bit of a worry for you, maybe just pulling the trigger a night before is the right move for your FPL teams. But again, I don't advocate early transfers, but sometimes it can be worthwhile. Okay, I've just got the team up here for game week 13 to give us a bit of an indication on what route I want to go for with my own personal team. I'm going to leave that up a minute just to give you an idea on what my teams currently look like without any FPL transfers. Just to give you an idea, I have 2 free transfers available, 0.4 million in the bank. So I'm in a decent position right now, it is worth noting. And I'm kind of content with my team. But again, I think there are a few changes that I could be make. I obviously am a Bowen owner, which is a bit of a problem going into this weekend, and also a Matty Cash owner. So let me quickly cover off some of the questions and then we'll come into my team. Who is the best captain? Best captain this weekend is an incredibly difficult one. I previously had it on Son with the fixture against Aston Villa, but I'm now leaning more towards Erling Haaland or Mo Salah. I saw Mo Salah's record against Man City and I can't lie, I do feel like he could go off once again against them. So Mo Salah is definitely a consideration in my eyes going into the weekend. I'm currently leaning towards Erling Haaland. I think there is going to be quite an open game against Liverpool, and I think there are going to be spaces for Man City to attack, but I could be very tempted by Mo Salah come the deadline. Again, I can see 62% of the people have voted for Haaland, 20% on Salah, 15% on Son. So people are going towards Haaland, it does seem. Hey, Natch bit lost. Cash, Livramento, one transfer. Considering Palmer for Diaby, Archer to Watkins or wait. In your situation here, I would most likely just roll your transfer and give yourself 2 free transfers for the following game week. That would be my recommendation personally. What do you think about transferring Bowen to Saka? Don't mind the move, but again, it is worth noting you are taking a little bit of a risk with the situation with Bowen because he could easily play this weekend and then we'll be in a bit of an issue if he does go off against Burnley because it is one of the best fixtures that you can have in any game week. Is Bowen fit? The current update is that he hasn't trained during the week and they are going to make a late call on him Saturday morning. Now, as I mentioned, the deadline is 11 a.m. They kick off at 3 p.m. We might get some news between that period before the deadline. So do stay active on social media if you can. And obviously tune into all of the deadline lives that are available on YouTube because we will probably get some news somewhere. It's just a case of where do we get it? Okay, please do keep putting your questions in the comment section. I want to quickly give you an idea on what I'm planning to do with my own FPL team. So the initial plan was if Bowen was available, I was then going to sell Matty Cash. And obviously right now we haven't got a clear indication whether Matty Cash is actually available. Sorry, we haven't actually got a clear indication if Bowen is available, but I'm not willing to sell him right now with kind of what we have seen. So the plan is to sell Matty Cash, unfortunately. I think it is time to sell him. Yes, he could be good for game week 14, but I think selling him is the right move for my team. So, Cash out. I have a few considerations right now. I would love to go to Reece James, but I know it is just a disaster waiting to happen. So, instead of going for Reece James, I could go the opposite end of the spectrum and go incredibly boring with Saliba. I think this is the route that I am considering. So, Matty Cash to Saliba, which would then see me bench Livramento, and I'll be backing Cole Palmer. And I am a Chelsea fan as well. It is worth noting, so I'm slightly biased. But the reason why I think Chelsea could do okay against Newcastle is this. Played against Arsenal's press. We've played against Man City's press. Yes, the St. James's high press is different to any other team in the league. However, Chelsea are pretty damn good at playing out from the back with the midfielders available to us in Enzo and Caicedo, even the likes of Gallagher. I'm not going to say press resistant players, but very, very good players in those situations. I think if any team is able to avoid the Eddie Howe press, it is going to be the Chelsea boys. Now, a lot of these guys are South Americans, so they have travelled a long way. Could that impact the game state? Definitely could. It is worth noting. But I think Chelsea have the tools available to hurt Newcastle in different ways to that Arsenal did in their games. So I'm going to be backing Chelsea for at least a goal in that fixture. Therefore, I think this transfer works well for my team. I get to keep Bowen and take the punt that he starts. I double up on the Arsenal defence, who are one of the best in the league, it is worth noting. I'm not 100% confident Arsenal will keep a clean sheet, but I'm happy to go for these two. And long-term Saliba feels like just a safe, cozy pick over the winter period. So my team would look like this, and I probably would put the captaincy on Haaland. I think I probably would get scared and do it. And my team would look like this with 1 free transfer available and 0 in the bank. We would then get to game week 14. And the team as a whole would look quite good. Double Arsenal at home against Wolves, but we know Arsenal are pretty damn leaky when they do play at home. So I am a little bit conscious of that. It is worth noting. The rest of the team looks pretty good. I could always bring in someone like a Taylor, but I wouldn't really substitute any of the starting 11 that I do have. The big question mark is going to be, how do I get Bryan Mbeumo into my team with obviously the state of it? I don't see who I would sell in this situation. So I'm going to let game week 14 just happen. I'm sure it will throw us a curveball and I will need both of my free transfers to make some moves. So that's my current thought process right now. I don't really like to look too far ahead because injuries are just so common right now in the game. You can have all of these great plans in your head and all of a sudden something happens and you are really in the, I'm going to call it the shit. So I'm happy to use one of my free transfers, bring in Saliba, knowing that it's a long-term hold because I have him for Wolves at home. We got him for Luton away. We got him for Villa away. We got him for Brighton at home. So decent long-term fixtures for a double up in Arsenal defence. I could have gone Reece James, it is worth noting, just to give you guys an indication of maybe what Reece James would bring to the table. So if I had Reece James, I would have Newcastle away this week. Not the best fixture, but we are buying Reece James for the upside. Let me just save the changes. Then have him for Brighton at home. Decent fixture again. Then we'd have him for Man United away. Not the most favourable. Then Everton away. Again, Everton are decent in attack. It is worth noting. Then the Sheffield United at home. Wolves, Crystal Palace. So James works quite well with the team as well. The big question mark is, does his body hold up? Looking at the fixture schedule that they do have, and again, they don't have any cup involvement, which is a good thing. Well, proper cup involvement like the Europa League or Champions League. Saturday, Sunday turnaround. I feel good about Reece James doing that. But then Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday. So game week 14 against Brighton, game week 15 against Man United, game week 16 against Everton. Do I see a player who has been out for such a long time over the last 2 years, playing 3 games in a week? I don't really see that happening. Whereas somebody like a Saliba, centre-back, really important player in this Arsenal team, I could see him just playing all of the games over this winter period. And unfortunately, even though you want to chase the upside that Reece James brings, sometimes you just got to look at the minutes and think to yourself, maybe I'll just get boring and I go for the man that I think is going to play the majority of minutes. And that's going to be Saliba. But I am keeping my options open for Reece James. But the only thing I will note before we get back into the questions is, as I said, and if you're new on the chat, I am just going to update you on this. Big price changes tonight potentially. Now, a lot of these players aren't necessarily going to rise in price, but let's take Saliba, for example. His progress per hour is 2.2%. So if it continues at that rate, he will rise in price. And another example of that is Matty Cash. He is one of the most sold players right now. If that continues at that trend, he will fall in price. So take my example. I have 0 in the bank if I do cash this Saliba right now. If I don't make the move, I could wake up tomorrow morning and I'll have cash at 0.1 cheaper and I'll have Saliba at 0.1 more expensive, and suddenly there is a bigger gap and I won't be able to make the transfer. So there is a chance I might make the move tonight, but I will, of course, well, I say I'll update you guys. You have to be involved in the Patreon because that is the main place where I update any midweek transfers. So if you do want to stay up to date with any of my moves, check out the link, Patreon in the bio. That is where I update all of my Patrons if I make midweek moves. Okay, so I plan on for being on for the next 7 minutes or so. So I'll try and get through as many questions as I can. As always, I will leave my team up on here. As I said, the intention is to do Matty Cash to Saliba tonight to avoid any of the price changes. Okay, so where am I at with the chat? E7 saying, I have Matoma, Bowen and Haaland yellow flagged, Archer on my bench, 1 free transfer, 0.4 million in the bank, thoughts on rolling or transferring. So I think what it sounds like is Bowen could be available, Haaland is available, Archer on your bench is a great first sub, Matoma is out for game week 13, we've had that confirmed from De Zerbi. So I think I would be very tempted to do Matoma to Mbeumo if you can afford it. Otherwise, you could bench Matoma for 1 week, bring in Archer into your starting 11 and address the situation with 2 free transfers the following week. That is kind of the way I would look at it. If you're desperate for a player, I think Matoma to Mbeumo or Matoma to Eze, depending on your funds. Would you start Cash or Udogie? I probably would start Probably Matty Cash because he does have the attacking potential, and I don't fancy Spurs for a clean sheet. It is worth noting. Our man saying, do you think I should sell Son next week for Bowen? Let's get to game week 14 when we get there. A lot of things could happen between now and then. Ben saying, I have Areola, Turner, Udogie, Cash, Gabriel, Mitchell, and Taylor. Bowen, Adingra, Son, Saka, and Salah, Watkins, Haaland, Archer with 2 free transfers. Okay, so in terms of your midfield, Bowen, Adingra, Son, Saka, Salah are absolutely fine. I'm going to keep Bowen because there is a chance he plays. But again, if you're worried about the Bowen situation, you could easily do a sideways move to somebody like an Mbeumo or an Eze. As I've said on repeat, I do apologise. Otherwise, with your defence, maybe doing a Cash to a Saliba is an option for you. You can afford that move, and long term it means that you have Arsenal coverage in double defence. That is the 2 moves I would consider for your teams, very similar to that I'm considering for mine. I've done Diaby to Mbeumo and Cash to Saliba. Finn, I hope that does pay off for you. What other alternatives are there cheaper than Cash? If you're in the market for cheaper alternatives, I think we need to take a look at the fixture schedule. Let me just get the fixtures up for you guys. Hopefully you can see this. I do apologise. I don't think you can see it properly. Okay, this is the fixture schedule for the next 6 game weeks. So we'll do it based on defense difficulty. For those that don't know, this is Fantasy Football Fix, literally the best FPL website out there. I don't care what anybody says. It is the most underrated site on the planet. Please do check it out. Just an unbelievable site, basically. So West Ham long-term are actually the team to invest in, but they just can't keep clean sheets right now. So you could go for a Kufal, could go for a Zuma if you really like the fixtures that you're seeing. Burnley, I can't get behind. Bournemouth, I can't get behind. Again, these are just the fixtures. These aren't actually taking into account the ability of the defences. So first up, I look at Newcastle, and I think, although the next 2 are bad, long-term is actually okay. So could look to maybe reinvest in one of their defenders like a Livramento, but his game time is a little bit sporadic. Otherwise, teams that are screaming out a bit of value, maybe Fulham, maybe a Ream at Fulham, a Robinson could be an option, but again, it feels a little bit ropey. Otherwise, we come down to someone like a Wolves. Ain't Nori is a potential option as well at a cheap price, but it is worth noting he is on 4 yellow cards, 1 away from a suspension. Outside of that, we might just have to get boring a little bit. A Crystal Palace, not the best fixtures, but for the next 3, they look okay. You could go to a Guy or a Mitchell as alternatives. 24k Will. Should I start Wood or Haaland? What world are we living in? Okay, Erling Haaland. But I do think Wood is a good differential. But no, you have to start Erling Haaland. Sorry to put another question, but do you think I should start bringing in Mbeumo a week early for Matoma, even if I have 2 Arsenal players? If your bench isn't good enough to cover off the Matoma injury, yes, I would do that move. I know it's not ideal this week, but long-term, you're looking at Mbeumo as a long-term pick rather than a short-term. And it's also worth noting, I expect Mbeumo's price to rise at least once. So you're also buying for the value rather than just like knowing that you're playing against your Arsenal players. Brian, it's a good point. Not a fan of double Arsenal. They play Liverpool game week 18 too. Yeah, I do agree with that, but game week 18 quite a while away. I could definitely rejig my team later down the line to actually justify what I'm doing right now. But I do take that point. It is a solid point. I want to get rid of Matoma for Mbeumo, but 0.2 million off. So I'm thinking of either going somewhere cheaper than Cash, but not sure who. Eze is your man, or Cole Palmer. Those are the 2 you need to consider, absolutely. Do you think Arsenal will come good now that Odegaard and Jesus are back? A concerned Saka owner asking. Don't think you need to be concerned about Saka. I think the introduction of Odegaard and Jesus is a good thing for Bukayo Saka. I think we're getting back to that Arsenal team that we know. Odegaard on that right-hand side with Saka is only going to enhance him as an option. It is worth noting. Marek saying, what do you think about Thiago Silva instead of Reece James? I know James can give some assists, maybe goal, but Thiago Silva I think is the most safe option from the Chelsea choice. And I probably would agree with that. However, it is a busy schedule. We could see Thiago Silva come out because they have so many brilliant options. Colwell, Badiashile, Disasi, and obviously Thiago Silva himself. So I wouldn't say Thiago Silva is completely immune from rotation just because of those 3 fixtures in 1 week. Be surprised if he plays all of them, knowing that we have very, very good replacements waiting in the wings. It isn't like Man United where they had to ring in someone like Johnny Evans. The players that will be coming in are established players. Johnny Evans is established. I'm just not slagging him. He's just, let's just say, a little bit behind the times, it is worth noting, even though he's done well. He's done well. Thoughts on Alvarez, big sell. Michael, it could be a big sell, but I think it's a luxury move. We need to remember it's still a cheap enabler playing in a Man City attack. I don't think we need to forget that right now. I would only sell Alvarez if there was a player that actually really offered you amazing value. So you could even use him as a placeholder for Nkunku in a couple of weeks if you want to go down that route. Can't afford Saliba to cash. Who do I replace cash with? If you can't afford Saliba, then firstly I'll say to you, is Gabriel an option if you don't own him already? Otherwise, cash replacements could include the likes of a Crystal Palace defender, or obviously I covered off some earlier, so hopefully that will help out. Okay, I do apologise, guys. I have places to be, and we have been going for... How long are we going for? 35 minutes. So we've been going a little bit over than what I intended. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Just to kind of like give you an idea, my intention is to do cash to Saliba tonight to avoid the price changes and get myself that investment. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. If you can drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, that would be massively appreciated. I always do a little bit of a check to see where we're at with the subscribers. We are at 11,125. Guys, if we could hit 150, that would be absolutely sick before the deadline. If you're not a subscriber already, please do consider doing so. That is going to be it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to be on a deadline live 9 a.m. tomorrow until 10 a.m. UK time. I hope to see you guys there. In the meantime, have an amazing evening, and I will see you very soon. Take care. Cheers.